Welcome to Behind the DM Screen. This is the weekly podcast where we discuss tips, tricks, and
pitfalls.
That's right. Hey, Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master. My name is Ian. I am the head of creative content here at WorldSmith.
I am Cameron. I am editing this podcast as we speak.
I'm Matt. I'm the CEO.
I'm Logan, one of the developers.
Today we are discussing villains and how to create villains in your D&D campaign, which is very exciting. But we have two little orders of business to attend to. The first one is user questions. Every single week we answer a question from one of our Discord users. We have a very fun Discord. It's got a lot of DMs in it. You can hop in there for free and check it out. So we're going to first roll initiative, so we determine what order we will answer the question, and then we will roll on a d20 to see what our question is.
Oof, I rolled a 1.
15.
Nat 1 from Cameron. Nat 1n from Ian.
Nat 1.
What?
Three
That's crazy.
3 crit fails.
Do you guys roll again?
Yeah, I guess so. I rolled a 16 on my...
I am lucky. That is canon, so I get to re-roll that. Okay. 9.
Okay.
19.
19. So
19,
Matt,
6.
Logan,
Yeah, I'll
me,
go first, yeah.
Ian.
Okay, you got a nat 20.
I got a 15.
A 15.
But then you guys
okay.
re-rolled, so,
And
yeah.
here, let's see what question we have here. Question number 9. This question is, have you ever killed a player out of spite?
Wait, we actually
did
answered
this
this
one
question
Last
last
week
week.
when I wasn't here.
I forgot to adjust our list. My bad. What are the odds of that?
What are the odds?
3
We rolled the
ones?
3
one.
ones. All right. Oh, now I want to know the answer to that question. I haven't watched that
Oh,
episode.
it was pretty good. Watch it.
Okay. Well, this is actually very similar.
Okay.
Saphira Roars asks, what do you do when a player wants to kill off their character, but you are uncomfortable with it? Or we could just say wants to kill off their character, I think, in general.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
The uncomfortable part of it, is... I honestly don't know if I've ever been uncomfortable with somebody wanting to kill off their own character.
That's like,
I'm
please do, actually. If you could,
if
I'd
you
love
wanna
that.
have your character die, great. I actually think it's really fun when somebody wants to kill their character, because it gives me an opportunity to almost drive the story in a dramatic way that I first thing I do is I don't tell the other players about it, right? That's the number one thing for me, because if another player is dying in the party, it should be dramatic and a big thing. 2, I often let it be a really player-driven death. So most of the time, the players want to do something very big and dramatic to save the party. There's they're doomed and they have to jump on the grenade kind of a moment. So those are my 2 things. Just don't tell the other players and let the player drive how they want to die. And then obviously I leave some of it up to chance in the rolls and stuff, but that way it makes it really, really fun, because the players can have this dramatic moment with the other guys and they're like, no, we're not going to lose you. And then they save everybody and it's very sad, but it's still very cool too. So, yeah.
Nice.
That's good.
I wonder if part of the awkwardness from this comes with other players expending as many resources as possible to, in one of the many ways, resurrect the dead player.
Yeah.
As much as I do think not telling the other players probably is it's definitely a more fun way for you and the player who wants to probably just run a new character, but you definitely have to talk to the other party members and be like, by the way, they're totally cool with this. They want to play a new guy. Don't cast Revivify. Don't. Depending on what level you are.
Oh, that is tricky.
Yeah.
Don't resurrection.
It's really
don't
hard to
waste
die.
your
It's really hard to
500
die in
GP
D&D,
diamonds.
honestly. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Because you want to keep the party in character, right? I feel like if you tell the party that a certain character is going to die, it almost brings you out of the fiction of it.
Yeah.
I had an instance where I was teasing this masked figure who kept coming in to help the party on random occasions. And this figure, it was like a Tenet situation where it was actually one of the party members from the future coming back to help. And the issue with that was when the masked figure, the player playing that character, wanted to kill off their character, because now I'm shoot, I have this masked figure and I don't know what to do with it.
Situation to be in.
Yeah, and so for that, I told him the situation. Frankly, I was don't tell the rest of the party, but you are that masked figure. Do you still want to kill off your character? Because I can do some kind of twist. And he ended up not killing off his character because I just moved that plot twist forward. So yeah.
I actually have kind of a dramatic one. It applies a lot to what you said, Logan, where I was playing an in-person game that had been going on for about a year and a half, and then one of the players had to move. They got a job and they were moving, and so we were like, well, we'll do one big last game that you'll be a part of, they'll be a part of. And then they pulled me aside separately, and they were like, I really want to die. And I was just like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah. Like, I really wanted to be like this big dramatic death. And I was like, okay. But his older sister was one of the players, and she was a cleric, like a life cleric.
Oh no!
Of course.
And and was like a really like solid team. Like she was kind of like the leader of the party. She was like always like making like she was like very like lawful good in like a fun way and stuff like that. So I was just like, this is gonna be really tricky. And sure enough, like we get into it, he decides to like face this boss in one-on-one combat. He's like no one else like do anything. They like start fighting. The boss is killing him. Like he's like having a purpose. She like casts magic on him to like give him to revive him, to give him hit points back. And then I had this kind of idea where I was like, well, you could justify, especially with it being like deity magic, that like what a healing spell is doing is like putting someone in this state that like this god would want to bring them to or something. Like essentially you're calling on a deity to be like right the wrongs of this situation, right? So we did actually a cool thing where like she casts this spell on him to like save his life. And then I like cut to like almost like a Harry Potter-esque like cutscene where like the two of them are in like the astral plane, and like this deity is there and is like, no, like he's supposed to die. Like this is what needs to happen.
Dang. Yeah.
She actually, they like multiple people were crying at the table. It was actually like super emotional. We all like gave him a big like hug when he left and stuff like that. But it was kind of this can't always be the case, because like if it had been a healing potion, it would have been kind of like awkward. But it was at least this like nice way within game to be like, your spell still works, your intention as a player is still there, but like we are gonna have him die, And then there was this really cool thing where then, because one of her spells was what's the one like Astral Guardians, or what's the one where like you summon like spiritual guardian? So then we had him be her spiritual guardian. So then she would cast spiritual guardian. Her like brother would show up and fight for her as like a ghost, which was super cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was actually turned out to be a really cool thing. But it's hard to kill players in D&D because there's so many ways to save people or to capture their soul in a ring and then go to hell to bring them back. Or like there's so many things you can do.
But that's actually a good point. Like I feel like a lot of the time when players want to die, if you want to make it really dramatic, it's not just like, oh, they're gonna fall in combat, right? So a lot of the time I'll have it be like that's a good example, and it's still very dramatic, so it's an okay way to do it. But a lot of the time it'll be like, okay, for me, maybe a god is coming through this portal and it's gonna like kill everybody, and like it's a big deal, right? So this guy like jumps through the portal, pushes it, and then like the portal closes behind them, and that's how they die, right? And maybe there's even room for them to have not officially died, but a lot of the time it's when people want to leave the campaign, and you're like, okay, like we love you, but you're moving or something, and then like maybe in a year later they come back into town, and then the plane opens again, right? And they're able to come back, but like it's often like something like that where I don't do it like, oh, they just fall in combat and like fail all their death throws. It's like, oh, here's a dramatic way that's like selfless sacrifice kind of a deal.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
I feel like one of the best ways to like kill a player, or at least set expectations of like this is going to be a scary campaign, is with your main villain, which is actually what we're talking about today. BBEGs, we love them. Players hate them. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Big bad evil guy?
Big bad evil guy. Yeah, it's an iconic.
I don't know that, so I'm assuming maybe some of our listeners don't.
So big bad evil guy is what we call it. BBEG, the big boss fight at the end of the game. I'm curious how you guys run your villain introductions, because generally they show up early in the game. They make a point, right? They tell us their motives. They show that they mean business, and then they leave for quite some time. How do you guys set up your villains, period?
I think like the key point there, that where at least for me has gotten the most confusing, is the and then they leave part. Because players, no matter how much power you just showed this guy having, they will try to stop them from leaving.
This is true.
And this will likely lead to the player death.
Yes.
So it's like, whether you planned it or not, it's like, yeah, by the way, you're supposed to fight this guy at level 16. Y'all are level 3. And
they always fight them.
Stop them?
Yeah.
In a way that, like,
Right.
Like, according to their personality and everything that this person is, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
It's
tricky.
But no, I like to draw inspiration from like a lot of. As a kid, I watched a lot of the like Justice League TV shows,
Right.
and they have a lot of reoccurring villains there, and they do a lot of different ways of having the villain leave and come back. Like some of them they get away, some of them they get captured but they break out, some of them they, maybe they get captured and somebody else breaks them out who's actually the big bad. Oh, it was Lex Luthor who actually has a plan, and so that's why he got well, that's why he pulled Mr. Freeze out of prison or whatever. Like
Sure. Yeah, and sometimes I think it's just hinting at something bigger. Like, you don't necessarily need to show Vecna. You just need to show, like, some of Vecna's minions plotting something, And that's all you really need to tease that there's something much bigger afoot, right?
Yeah, you can do, like... I look at, like, the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, a lot of times like I think a cool model for this, where it's, like, Darth... You know that... Like Darth Vader and Luke like don't ever meet until the end, but you still get to see a lot of like Darth Vader's storyline through the way that they like interact with like Princess Leia, who then like ends up like joining the party later. So like maybe there's a player who has had experiences with the boss, or you can like see if you can find ways, there's kind of the dramatic scene where like Obi-Wan is killed. Like you can find ways to have the party kind of like witness from a distance the boss doing something that's like really powerful. One thing too, I talk about this actually in one of the DM tips videos that I just recorded, but like one thing too that I think is a fun element of like storytelling that I think a lot of D&D players miss is in kind of like classic film, like 3-act structure. Like in the first act, you kind of introduce who like the bad person, like the big boss is or the big problem is, and then like in act 2, they're working to solve it. So like in Star Wars, this is them like rescuing Princess Leia is like actually the main plot of that movie, and that's what they work on for the majority of act 2. And then at the end, like they actually suffer like a big like setback, like they achieve their goal, but there's like a big setback, right? Like Obi-Wan is killed and now they're gonna blow up Yavin, like with the Death Star, right? And so it's like, and then the plot becomes something like different. Now the plot is we have to blow up the Death Star, and then you have kind of like this rush to this like climactic battle. So I think that can be a fun thing to think about, is like plant a thing for your players that they work towards a lot, and then in some ways they might even fail that. Like maybe their goal is to be like, oh, we need to rescue this and this thing from this dungeon. They spend the majority of their sessions working on that. When they get there, they discover that item is actually gone. They failed that task. The big boss has that item and is now going to use it to destroy a city nearby. Geez. And now you have to go fight them. And there's just a really nice moment. You see it if you start looking for it in cinema. You see it a lot, where like around an hour and a half, an hour 15 minutes into a movie, the party will actually fail. Like the party will fail at something, realize that they're kind of like that now the stakes have changed and something even worse is going to happen that they didn't even know was an option on the table. And that can be like a really nice, I think, like twist of a knife, and a way that you can have a villain again feel like more powerful without having to have them fight them. Like if they show up and they're like, oh, the villain already achieved the goal we were trying to get to, and now they're even stronger than they were before, or like, oh, we've been duped the whole time. Yeah, it's kind of a nice way to show off how strong the villain is without having to have them actually come like face to face until you truly get to the climax where they can like come face to face and fight them.
Reminds me of like, if y'all have ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, like I don't think you don't see Firelord Ozai until I think it's the season finale of season 2.
Yeah.
Like the first time when Zuko confronts him, that's the first time you see his face.
Yeah, totally.
And like all the rest of it is build up and stuff to it. So that's another probably great example.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. I tend to do it in 2 different ways when it comes to introducing. I really like what you just talked about, like with their big overarching figure that you don't necessarily meet for a really long time. I think in pre-made campaign modules, the best example of this is Curse of Strahd, because like everything has to do with with Strahd. Everybody knows who Strahd is. Like it's very obvious. Like there is a big bad guy who is controlling everything essentially, and then like, even if you're never directly interacting with that person, it feels like every conflict that you're a part of is because of that person, right? And I feel like in a lot of games, especially when it's like a really big person who already has established morals, already has established goals, like that's the way I introduce an evil guy. My second favorite way of doing it is having a villain who is connected to the party in some way. In these ways, I always like to do it as subtly as I can for a really long time. So like maybe I start the campaign, they have no idea what the big overarching conflict is going to be, and they like help take in like an NPC, or they save an NPC or something like that, and like eventually someone who's part of the story, like they failed them in a way, and then that kind of results in them becoming this really big villain in the long run. One of my favorite examples of something like that is in the Stormlight Archives. Do you guys read Brandon? You read Brandon Sanderson. Do you guys?
I do not.
All right. So there's one guy in it. Like my favorite character is this guy named Kaladin.
Yep.
And
I have made a post on Kaladin on our
Yeah.
socials. Never read it.
He's the coolest guy ever, dude. Like Henry Cavill like called Brandon Sanderson, begged to like play him.
Yeah.
So cool. But anyway, he like starts as a slave, and he essentially like helps all of these people who are slaves with him like rise up and eventually like gain freedom and all these things. But one of the people in his slave group, this guy named Moash, eventually like betrays him and the party because like these things that him and Kaladin connected on really well at the beginning, like Kaladin kind of like turns away from because he's able to see the good in people, and Moash just has almost become a little bit too extreme in his ideology. And it's just like this perfect example of like people who were best friends at the beginning eventually like he's killing other members of the close friend group, and it's just like really, really tightly knit with the party. So I think like my favorite two examples are like really big, almost seems untouchable at the beginning, or like really close to the party and like.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that you bring this up because it reminds me of the plot of Portal 2.
Yeah.
Okay, you're with this
Yeah.
robot the entire game trying to stop this other robot.
Yeah.
And without spoiling too much, essentially an ally of yours becomes the big bad.
Yeah.
And it is like one of the most jaw-dropping moments, and suddenly the game becomes so much bigger after that.
Yeah.
And I think tying the villain to someone's backstory, I had a DM do that once to me. We're on session 1. We had like this guy hunt us down, and it was just something small I had added to my backstory. I just had said like, we're on the run from this bounty hunter, and apparently that bounty hunter was like way stronger than we thought he was, and he ended up being this major player in this campaign. And I think if you can find ways to tie a villain into someone's backstory and then let the player do the exposition on that villain, that can be a fantastic way to like reveal a villain and create personal stakes.
Yeah, I also think too, like on a very practical level, I think people just don't. I think a lot of DMs I talk to like don't use the spell book enough in just interesting ways. Like because you kind of brought up the thing of like how do you have the villain show up when they're really powerful, but then like get away with it. And like all it takes is just like a couple hours flipping through the spellbook, and you'll just find some wild stuff that will really surprise you, and it will surprise your players too, right? Like you can use things like you can have the villain do things like banishing people to other planes. You can have the villain do things like using like command or other things to literally just control their players' actions. Like go check out Clone, go check out Dream. Like you can have like the villain can be showing up in your players' dreams and having dialogues with them there. Like you could have the Soul Jar. I don't know if you all have done a little reading on Soul Jar, but like like the villain could literally be taking the body of like another NPC. Like I think there's like so many things that like if you just, and again like they don't even have to have like, well I mean a couple things here. First of all, when you make a villain, like if you're using a platform like WorldSmith, when you make a villain, you can give them whatever spells you want. So that's great. But even if you don't want them to be a spellcaster, just give them a scroll that does it, like a one-time or something. And I think there's so many creative ways, or even things like Wall of Force, right? Like you can just like show up, trap a party in a Wall of Force, or trap a villain. They can surround themselves in a Wall of Force, and they can give their little villain monologue if you want. So like I think, like I would just say my word of advice is, don't, exactly to Logan's point, like don't go in and be like, well, they've got 400 hit points, the party will never try to defeat them. It's like they will, they almost always will. But if you show up and then you're just like, boom, Wall of Force, banish, like feeble mind, and now all of a sudden the party's like, oh, we're literally screwed, we can't do anything, and then they're like, that guy was so strong, and then they can teleport out of there and they can be gone, and you can just be like, wow, next time we fight that guy we're gonna have to be way stronger, which is a lot of times what you want.
I had you mentioned like look through the spell book. That's exactly how one of the villains in my current campaign was made. So I was looking through the spell book and realized that suggestion lasts 8 hours.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And it's not limited. Like it has to be a single suggestion, but it's not a single sentence. It's a suggestion. And so I have this character who made like Big Bad, who made a bunch of magic coins, like just gold coins, that when someone like triggered it, I can't remember exactly what I made the trigger, but when someone triggered it, it would cast suggestion on the person to in 7 hours, stab the closest person.
Oh, jeez.
And so
That's
it's like,
crazy.
how are you supposed to hunt this person and these coins down because of the lag time there?
Yeah.
It's a great serial.
Yeah,
killer.
That's a mind
great.
game.
That's
Wow.
awesome. That's really cool.
Making me think of Death Note, dude.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is
no,
great.
it was. Yeah, but it was. And now my characters really don't like this guy.
I can
Well,
imagine.
and I think on the inverse too, like, you know, we have a lot of new DMs using WorldSmith for the first time, and I also just think like you also don't have to overthink it. Like I think right now, I think there's a popular thing I think amongst fantasy writers where it feels like, well, the classic stuff has been done, so now we have to get really in depth, and it has to be like, and it's just like at the end of the day, you can run a great session where the boss is just a red dragon. And the red dragon's just sitting on a hoard of gold that a bunch of villagers want back. I mean, that's the plot of The Hobbit, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think, like, don't feel like you have to create like, I think creating if you're excited about creating something crazy and cool and use the spell book, like, your players will love it. It'll be awesome. And that's a little bit more my style. But also, like, even as a player who's been playing for a long time, I love to sit down to a table and just be like, oh, it's a hill giant that's stolen a bunch of sheep from this person's village, and I'm like, this sounds fun. Like, let's go fight a hill giant.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Players are excited to go adventuring. They're excited to fight in combat. They have a lot of combat-based abilities. Like, you can just have it be a big monster. You can go into WorldSmith and just be like, I just want it to be a super strong monster. Spit me out something, and then have it be like, yeah, just have it go through the countryside, destroying villages, and there's a bunch of people who want it dead. It's like your plot can be as simple as that, and your players will still have a good time.
Yeah, I think where a lot of the overthinking comes from with villains is a lot of people think that a lot of DMs think that villains are the plot hook for a good campaign, right? Like, if you don't have a good villain, then like, what's the point of anything? But the most fun my players have ever had in a session comes from like side quest stuff, you know, where they're just totally derailing what I want them to do, and they're having a great time. But you know, at the same time, villains can be a great way to hook your players and to put some kind of stakes onto the campaign. So yeah, it's weird. Sometimes I like don't even make a main villain. Sometimes it's just like an opposing force. Yeah. In my pirate campaign, I had like kind of the British Empire-esque, you know, and they were hinted at by a lot of the NPCs in the world. They were like, oh, these bastards, the Brits, you know, we hate them, right? And eventually they like run into them, and they just like slaughter half of the NPCs on their ship, and it's like so brutal. And this was like 20 sessions in, so like they learned to love these characters, and then all of a sudden they just like half of them die, and all of a sudden, you know, we're back onto the railroad where it's like, okay, we need to kill every single one of the people in this empire because we just hate them so much, and there's like so much personal stakes. And that wasn't me introducing the villain in session 3. That was like a lot of time and work put into it. I wouldn't even say work. It's just me hinting at this force, and that's all you really need to do. So yeah, like, don't overthink your villain. Like, sometimes just have an opposing force, or don't. Like, you don't even need a main villain in some instances, right?
Yeah.
I also think there's a part of, like, as cool as sympathetic villains are in, like, a story setting and, like, in cinema and stuff, you know, it is fun to have, like, these morally complex villains that's like, oh, hey, they have, you know, some of their arguments are pretty solid. In a D&D game, it's all kind of just there for fun. Like, sometimes it is just fun to just, oh yeah, we're all gonna, these characters, we built these classes around these cool abilities, we're gonna take those and we're just gonna whack this guy as hard as we can.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a dungeon crawl can still be the most fun, some of the most fun you can ever have at a table. And it's just like, yeah, there's just a beholder down here, and it's just got a bunch of magic items, and like our goal is to go and kill all the little mini bosses until we get to the big boss, and then we'll kill them, and it's still a great time. Yeah.
And that's part of why side quests sometimes are the most fun as a player, because you know exactly what you're getting into. Like, there's not all this like intrigue or like anything like that that's complex or subtle. You know, you just know, hey, I need to go kill this thing, or I need to go fetch this thing, and there may be some complications, and I'm gonna fight them. Essentially, you know.
I think a party can have, like, I think my D&D party I'm running right now, well, I should probably relate to this. This will make them laugh, but like, I think there can be actually some player fatigue around slightly too many mind games. Like, if they're just kind of like, if every NPC I meet is someone that's using disguise self and is actually a servant of the villain. If like I'm getting, you know, all this weird magic that's getting used against me, it can feel like sometimes such a weight off of your shoulders to be like, there's a bunch of orcs attacking a village. We just need to defend the village from orcs, like hard stop. And so I do think like keep your eye on that. Like I think it can be cool to do those things, and players will latch onto it and get excited about it. But like for every time that you do something like weird where there's like deception and like a magic thing and someone in the party is like a turncoat that's going against them, you probably also should pepper in a side quest or a plot line where it's literally just like there's a big monster in the swamp and we need to go cut off its head.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up because I played in an over a year-long campaign where the DM had a major pitfall. He created the main villain. It was, in this case, it's actually the bounty hunter, right? And we played for a year, and we ended up being level 14. And this villain keeps revisiting us, and every single time he revisits us, he's somehow just like ultimately stronger than us, where he can just like cast infinite time stops and can like delay fireball. And whenever we get like a new ability that can maybe counter him, it seems like he always has something in his pocket and he's just constantly toying with us. And it got so exhausting after a while, never being able to quite win. And to that point, I just want to say, like, for a lot of new DMs, don't be afraid to show weakness in your villain. I played Curse of Strahd, and when I was playing as Strahd, I realized he had very little hit points. And to be fair, I played this encounter completely wrong. He was supposed to be sneaky and like intelligent about how he fought, but for most of the combat, he was just like duking it out with them, and they ended up killing him really fast. And the party actually like had a lot of fun, just like beating the shit out of Strahd, you know? And so I would, encourage you to not be afraid to like let your players feel strong against any villains that you throw at them, even if it's just on occasion.
Yeah,
right?
and like stick to the stat block. I mean, this is part of the reason like why I love using WorldSmith is like rather than going in with a vague idea of I just want the villain to be stronger than them, it's like build out a stat block and stick to it. If it says they can only cast that spell once a day, they can only cast it once a day. You know, if it says that but on the other hand, don't hold back, because I've also fallen into the problem where I have a big spellcaster come and I say like, oh my gosh, they have power word kill, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't use that because I know it's going to kill one of the players. But then like no, like if you don't, like again, like it's balanced. Like if they don't use power word kill, you're going to suddenly realize, well, they only have 70 hit points, and actually the party can kill them in one round. So like a lot of times, like have the boss show up, stick to their stat block, but play them hard, because your players will know if you're pulling your punches, but they'll also know if you're just like making up rules on the fly, where you're just like, no, actually it misspells your thing, and actually I can take a bonus action where I can teleport. It's like that kind of stuff starts to get annoying. So it's like it's finding that balance. And again, like WorldSmith is great at creating balanced stat sheets for your monsters, where it's like use the hard abilities, but then like don't make up abilities halfway through the fight, because your players will totally feel that.
I also think like tying this back to killing players conversation at the beginning is players should run sometimes. And so don't
they
feel
need to
bad.
learn that lesson. Oh my gosh. Why?
They never learn.
Don't feel bad if they're being really dumb about it. And they're like game balance in D&D is not actually the dungeon master's job. Like the players always have the option to run. Like pretty much every class has an escape option. And if they aren't like if they didn't build around that or like plan on ever using like any like expeditious retreat or anything, like those wizards die. That's how the world works.
There's two kind of fun. There's a slight tangent, but I think there's actually like two kind of fun balance things you can do too that can actually encourage us. I played with a DM once who he would roll the hit dice for the boss monsters in public outside the DM screen.
Oh, that's cool.
So like if it was a monster that had, and you'll see this, I think this is also greatly underutilized. Every single monster, they have a suggested hit points, but then next to it they have an actual rolled hit dice, right? Yeah. So it'll say like 10d12 plus 40 or something, right? Yeah. So what you can do is you can actually take a hand, and it's cool if you have this many dice, but like if you can take a handful of like 20 d12s and roll them in public on the table. And what it does is it just creates, because I think part of the reason why players don't run is I actually think it can be difficult to gauge for a player, am I supposed to be able to win this fight or not? And there can be an awesome thing that can happen on either side of the spectrum, which is you can roll the hit dice and there can suddenly be this like feeling around the table where there's like, this guy's too strong for us to kill. We probably should run. On the other hand, you can have these great moments where like you roll the hit dice and then somebody like randomly crits and it does super good, and you suddenly look at it and you're like, I think we have a chance. I think we can do it. Which feels like real to a cinematic experience where like you get that sense. I feel like players are always asking this question when I'm fighting: how close are they to dying? Yeah. And it's always such a tricky one to ask because you're like, do you roll insight for it? Do you roll like, what do you actually do to say? Do you just describe like, well, they're bleeding a lot, like you know what I mean? Like the hit dice thing was really rad, and so that's one suggestion. Another thing you can do is the Alien RPG uses initiative cards to like track what order people go in, and then monsters that have more actions just have more cards.
That's so cool.
And it's just a way to basically visualize for your players like, oh damn, like this thing has 4 actions, so every single round it's going to be that much stronger than us. So like I think there are some things like I actually think when it comes to boss fights, sometimes knowledge of how strong the monster is actually more dramatic than mystery on how strong the monster is. Where like just laying it out on the table a lot of times will inform your players we should run, or maybe the players get super lucky and then they start dealing enough damage where they're like, I think we can do it. Like let's stick around and fight. But I think a lot of times the miscalculation comes in that like gray area of like, oh, I didn't know how strong this person was until we got far enough into the fight where now half of us are dead and now I feel a little stupid.
I have run into the issue where like players, they get the boss fight to like 5 hit points left and they're too scared to finish it off. And so they run and it's like, no, just kill it, just please.
Right, totally.
And for what works for me is just
the boss trips and falls and dies.
I know, it's like, please. And so I think descriptions during combats with boss fights help a ton. When the first attack lands, make your party feel helpless. Make it feel like the axe hits the dragon and a single scale comes off, right? It did 12 damage. It's not going to be much. But, you know, an hour into combat, suddenly that axe is like cutting through the hide of this dragon and you see blood. And it's at this point that the party sees like a glimpse of hope. And I think that elevates the game and gives them at least a chance, even if they still feel helpless at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah.
As I also do, like, you know, you kind of ask the question, like, do they roll insight? Or, like, you know what, they actually, like, nature, survival, insight, like, depending on what they're fighting, like, all those things could actually be, you know, like, roll insight's like, oh, this guy's bluffing, like, he's almost dead, you should go kill him.
Totally. Like having it be skill-based is cool, because then you can have a player feel like, oh, like, I rolled in that 20 and now I know, like, exactly this creature's weakness or something.
And I'm always a fan of, like, I feel like some of the D&D skills just, like, they feel like they're, you know, one-stop shops. Like, if that makes sense, it's like, oh yeah, insight, it does this one thing, and it's like every time the DM has acted out anything as an NPC, insight check. It's like, no, I want insight to be a little more like, can we have more
nuance,
insight things? Can we have more?
I have a whole DM tips thing on insight. It's my least favorite skill in the game. But I think it can be used well. I won't get into it right now.
It could be the best, but
Don't even ask me how many times I ask my players to roll investigation, man.
Or perception.
Like my goodness, perception.
Okay. Sorry, just one last quick thing. My players all the time, they're like, I want to do this. And I'm like, what I like to do is I'm like, okay, what skill are you trying to use? Because what skill you're using is going to determine what info you get, you know? Like perception or investigation are two, like, you know, sometimes you want to lean towards that perception because you're a cleric and have some absurd perception. But sometimes investigation is going to get you, like, if it's a trap that you're looking for it, then investigation is going to tell you more about how that trap works and how to disarm it. Anyway.
Yeah, totally.
We should have a whole podcast episode on skills.
No, we should.
That's a great idea.
Skills are tricky to use and hard to know how to use.
Dex is the most OP. Constitution and Dex are the two most OP like ability scores.
Never play a character with less than 10 Dex. I've done it.
It's awful.
Anyway.
Well, to wrap up today, we are going to follow up on the Puzzler, which we had actually 2 episodes ago. This was a Puzzler I gave. As a refresher, I was playing as a player in a party. We were fighting a classic Beholder. If you don't know, Beholders have cones of anti-magic, which basically nullifies all spells, all magic items, and many class abilities.
Beholders are cheaters when it comes to D&D.
They're the best.
Yeah.
We had a cleric, Twilight cleric, that was flying over lava. They only had 7 hit points left. which was a mistake they should not
Yeah,
have done.
why did they
But
fly
the-
over
well,
lava?
because
That's what
they
I
needed
wanna
to
know.
get to an
That's the real
advantageous-
puzzler.
Twilight Clerics, we could have a whole episode about Twilight Clerics. My goodness, they have this zone of buff where they give
Yeah.
people passive 10 hit points as well as buff. It's very good.
They're great.
So they were trying to position themselves in the correct place
see.
to buff people, the maximum
Sure.
of people. The beholder looks at them. Fly goes away. They're falling towards a pit of lava with 7 hit points left, and they survive. And my puzzler was, how did this happen? It was briefly discussed at the table afterwards,
Yeah.
so I know that you guys know it.
Yes. Does Logan know it?
No, I wasn't here. that
Okay.
week.
I want to hear your
let's
guess
have
on it,
Logan
because I think
guess.
Cameron and Matt have already figured it out.
Like, did it? Should they have fallen or not?
Well, they were falling. So the puzzler is
How did they survive?
how did they get rescued from
Yeah.
this situation
Mm.
as a play, and no one else took actions. It happened on their turn.
And you said no magic items either.
No magic items.
And they're in the cone of
And they're in the cone of anti-magic.
Did they fall out of the cone? Like out of the range of the cone?
No.
Hmm.
It's tricky.
I wouldn't have gotten it if you had
Yeah.
said it immediately.
I
after
wanted
the
to
podcast
say it.
last time.
If you rewatch 2 podcasts ago, as the podcast is ending, I'm like on the edge of my seat. I want to spit it out so bad. But
Is it like, were they an Aarakocra or something? Like the
Nope.
fly?
oh, that's a good one though.
That's a
good
great
one.
answer.
They were
Yeah.
playing like a drow, like a dark elf.
Yeah, I actually do like the idea though of an Aarakocra cleric taking the fly spell.
That's cute. I do like that. So I'll give it away.
Yeah.
When you're a cleric, you have a little ability called Divine Intervention.
Ah, there we go. I should have asked about the level.
Again, I think underutilized. Basically, the way Divine Intervention works, you can correct me all if I'm getting it wrong, but you roll a D100, and you have to get equal to or lower than your level.
Yep.
They were only a level 11. They took and then specifies specifically in the anti-magic field that the only thing that the anti-magic field does not apply to is a direct intervention from a god. It actually specifies
Wow,
that
it
in the
does.
rules, which is awesome.
That's so cool.
So cool.
It was very fun. They rolled a D100. It was also kind of funny because D100s are hard to read. Like when you roll D100, it's very easy to get it mixed up. And so they rolled it and they thought they had a 70. And then the DM, unfortunately, was sitting right next to them and looked over and was like, "That's a 7. You rolled a 7."
That's so awesome.
Good for them.
And so, their god stepped in, the god of Twilight, whose name escapes me at this point. But their god came in, basically turned off, like they damaged the eye of the beholder that had the anti-magic rays. So it was like momentarily turned off. They were able to like fly to safety, and we got like advantage on the next attack against the beholder or something. But just one of those awesome moments at the table where you have a 1 out of 10 chance you will suffer certain death if you fail it. They rolled the dice and they got it. There was loud,
What a good
loud
feeling. Isn't that the
cheering.
best
It's
feeling?
the best feeling. It's the best
That's
feeling.
why we play D&D.
Totally, it's what the game's all about. It was very fun.
Yeah.
And again, one of those. Well, this will tie back into our theme for the thing, but like, it would have been very easy for the DM, who's actually my older brother, to like in that moment be like, "This is not going to be fair. I'm going to kill this player," right?
Yeah.
But they did the right thing, which was they played the boss as hard as they could. Like they were like, no, like this monster's goal is to kill players. I'm going to attempt to do it. And if they'd never done that, we would have never had that moment at the table. And at the end of the day, like if that player had died out of lava, it would have been dramatic and justified, you know. Or who knows? We could have found maybe another way. They would have survived for like 1 turn, like taking a death save, even though they're in lava. Somebody would have maybe figured out something crazy and dramatic. Like don't underestimate your players and their ability to like pull off wild stunts. So have your boss fight hard. That's the moral of that story.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to kill your players. That's the story.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, thanks everybody. We hope that you check out WorldSmith. That's the cool platform that we all work on. It's a really fun platform for DMs. We all use it regularly in our own games. And go check out our Discord too, and leave us some questions that we can answer next week's episode.
Links in bio, comment, and we will talk about whatever you comment. So please do that. Thanks, guys.
Okay, sweet. See ya.
So, yeah.